Welcome to Joy, Love, and Abundance, designed to lift up and explore the people, organizations, and experiences that create a more joyful, loving, and abundant world. Join hosts Rodney Eric Lopez, Patrice Tanaka, and Cyrus Webb as they share stories and insights that will inform and inspire you. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Joy, Love, and Abundance. And hopefully we will be able to share something today that would not only inspire you and encourage you, but also help you to find that joy, love, and abundance for yourself. I'm Cyrus Webb, excited to be back with my friends Patrice Tanaka and Rodney Eric Lopez. Hello to the two of you, and glad to be back with you.
Good to be here, too. Thanks, Cyrus.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Good to be
always
with
a
you
pleasure.
too, Cyrus.
Yeah, we should let our audience know we took a breather last week because there was just so much going on in the world, and I sent a text out to you guys just saying, you know what, maybe we should just give our audience some time to process, and it made me think about this week's show, and as we kind of kick it off and think about how we're dealing with things. It's been interesting, and I didn't even tell the two of you why I decided to ask you guys about doing this. I've had several people ask me, Cyrus, how are you staying so positive? How are you not, being down, and how are you not being depressed, with everything that's happening in the world around race and police and, and what's happening in Washington. And I thought, it'll be great for us to be able to talk about it because all three of us are very busy in our respective fields. And I think for myself, I have personally, and again, I may be the odd one here, but growing up, I was never one that really was impacted a whole lot by external forces. My biggest issues always were internal. So I guess I never allowed things that were happening around me to get me to a place where I was depressed or, feeling deflated or feeling hopeless. And then I didn't grow up that way. So for myself, even as an adult, even though I'm very empathetic to what's happening in the world and I'm not Pollyannish about it, I do realize the importance of being the light. That's a big part of my platform, I think, and what I try to do. So that's kind of been the thing I've been sharing with people. Hey, this is the way I am. I know that there are bad things happening. I've experienced the loss of loved ones. I've experienced friends that have died, even over the past couple of weeks. But for myself, it's always thinking about celebrating life, making the most of life, appreciating that, and trying to share with other people how they can do that, which is why for the past, now 7 years, every day for the past 7 years, I posted those morning messages on social media.
Mm-hmm.
After my grandmother died, that was what I needed to do because I would always share a motivational thought with her every day. And I did not want to stop that habit, so I decided, you know what, I'll just share it with the world. So that's what I've been doing for the past 7 years since she died.
Them.
And so that's kind of been my thing. I'm just naturally a positive person. Even after the death of my grandmother, I tried not to be overcome with the grief. I miss her terribly, even 7 years later, and I have those days where she's weighing heavy on me. But I know how proud she was of me and how much what she told me the day before she died about, I need you to keep going. You're going to do great things. And I think about if I don't do that, that am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? So that's kind of been my thing that I've been sharing with people, guys, is that, look, I know there are bad things happening. I know everyone's affected in some way or another by things. And, I've been dealing with, aging parents myself. And so trying to be positive with them and, and encouraging them. So that's just kind of been my thing. So I was curious for the two of you, we talk about joy, love, and abundance for others. But Patrice, what about you? I mean, with everything that's been happening in the world, how have you been keeping your own joy and sanity?
I know it's a challenge at times, but like you, I think no matter what happens, I do have this need to continue to be productive and to help myself and others, and that always, makes me feel better. I mean, I'm still reeling from the shootings in Atlanta from 3 or 4 weeks ago, and still dealing with a lot of the build up of anti-Asian hate and violence that's continuing. And this week I spoke to 2 different groups. Last night to the University of Florida. They have the Asian Public Relations Student Association and the Asian America Student Union put together this webinar. So a number of established people in the communications field who are Asian American and Pacific Islanders got together, and we talked about this time that we are all experiencing right now. It's very scary. And just talking about it, 100 people having a conversation, I find it very healing just to focus on calling it out, naming it, saying it, admitting to our fears and what we can do, and the importance of everyone speaking up and not remaining silent, because that unfortunately culturally and historically has been a problem with Asian Americans just kind of sucking it up and, shouldering on. And so by doing that, it makes them, AAPIs, and the hate or discrimination that people feel against them invisible too. So when something like Atlanta happens, it's like, really? You think that was an anti-Asian hate crime? Are you just being racist by calling it an anti-Asian hate crime? I mean, there's crazy things. And so talking about something that's traumatic, I think is very healing instead of, sitting and alone and suffering and just, getting more and more freaked out about it. So I think talking and sharing is a really good thing. And to your point, Cyrus, I think the best way to honor the people that we love and admire is to carry on and honor their memory and honor, the love and the great things that we learn from them and continue to bring that to the world and share it with others. That is the best way to do it. I think it's, really self-indulgent just to be consumed with grief and unable to do anything for yourself or anyone else. That's not really helpful, right? So I love the way that you've been honoring your grandmother's memory. So carry on, my friend.
I appreciate that. I will say one thing, and again, I know I'm a weirdo, but my grandmother died on a Thursday on the 27th, May 22nd, on a Thursday. And every Thursday, and this is one thing I've learned. I'm telling you guys a secret. If it seems like I'm busier on Thursdays, that's done purposely. I purposely overfill my schedule on Thursdays because what I have learned is I think it's I automatically feel down on Thursdays. And when I think about it, when I take the time to think, I'm like, oh, that's why. It's a Thursday. And that's why I normally make Thursday my busiest day of the week so that I don't have time to get to that lull of, thinking about it. And the same with the 22nd. I always try to make the 22nd so busy that I don't think about it the 22nd. Come on, I can't be the only weird person that does that. I'm sure somebody else out there. If you guys do that, I want you to email me and let me know. But I will say this too, and then Rodney, I'm going to bring you into this. Losing my grandmother was like losing a first love. I mean, I have been in love before, but because we had such a bond, I mean, she gave me my first haircut. And so the last 9 years of her life, I've moved back to the city to actually live with her, to be her primary caregiver. So 7 days a week, I cooked 3 meals a day for her, took her to her dialysis 3 days a week, and every doctor's appointment, and gave her insulin shots. And so we were in a relationship that was deeper than just her being my grandmother, So it was very devastating. It was very devastating for me, but I share that with people because I want them to know they're not by themselves. I know what it feels like, but I have done exactly what you're saying, Patrice, and that is not to be overwhelmed by it. I think it is good to acknowledge it, and I do take the time to acknowledge what I'm feeling, but I then try to make sure I don't stay there, because if I do, I won't be able to get anything else done. I just know that for myself personally. Rodney, what about for you? I mean, how have you been kind of dealing with everything that's been kind of happening in the world the past few weeks?
Well, thank you for the question, Cyrus, and I'd like to respond. But before I do, I do want to say something about your commentary on your grandmother, because it made me just made me think of how special it is to have the love of grandmother. A grandmother and her grandson especially. I mean, any grandchild obviously, but particularly the grandmother-grandson relationship is so special, and the love knows no bounds there. And it makes me sad for the relationships that I did not have, because I did not have relationships with my grandmothers, because one of them died when I was very young, and when I hear my family talk about her, they talk about her with such love and such reverence, and it was a love I never got to know. And then my maternal grandmother lived in Puerto Rico, and I was raised in New York City. My parents were born in Puerto Rico. I was raised in New York City, born and raised in New York City. And there might have been one meeting when I was an infant, but I grew up without that grandmotherly love and attention. And so, when I hear about people who speak with the kind of fondness that you do about your grandmother, it always makes me wistful or wishful, right?
Yeah.
That I had that relationship, because I think it's such a special one. So I'm glad that even though there is a sense of loss, I'm glad that you were able to have that very tender and close relationship with your grandma. But I do want to say, in terms of how I've been getting through these last few weeks in particular, honestly, I've been getting through by some very kind of what most people might consider some mundane and kind of regular things, and that is, I have the privilege of being a dad to two incredible boys who are teenagers. One of them is a senior in high school who's getting ready to go to college next year, and the other one is a sophomore preparing for his junior year. And what's been nice this year, particularly in these last couple of months, is just watching them prepare for their next step in life. And so, there have been lots of hours spent, in virtual tours and admitted days and reviewing of financial aid packages and, all those things that you do when preparing for a child to go to college the spring before that first year. And so just working with my son on that project has been a really wonderful way, not just for me to connect with him, but also to just give me and my brain a really worthwhile direction for my energy, for my love, for my attention, and in something that's really meaningful for our family. And in terms of my younger son, he just completed a really wonderful career exploration program this year, and it was nice to watch him go through that and think about his next steps in high school. And so these are things that millions of families around the country and around the world go through every year. But to have that kind of very ordinary experience, yet it's so meaningful when it happens to your family, having that as a project these last few weeks has been incredibly healing, and really joyous for me. So that's how I've been getting through these last few weeks.
Yeah, good deal. You know, I think one of the things we talked about, and I want to say for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Joy, Love, and Abundance. You just heard there from Rodney Eric Lopez. Also, I'm joined with Patrice Tanaka as well as myself, Cyrus Webb. We've been just sharing with you guys how we've been kind of dealing with everything. I've gotten the question, and I know the other two probably have had people reaching out to them too, about how have you been able to keep going? How have you been able to, to stay present with everything that's going on? And, I think for myself, and we were actually talking about this before we went on here, but Patrice, did you have something you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I may have cut you off. But one of the things we talked about is how there is a danger, I think, of information overload. And I was sharing with you guys about, full transparency on the radio dial where we heard. I'm also the news director. I host a daily news show called Conversations Daily News, very original there, Monday through Friday. And I've been very intentional about the news because I did not want it to be all doom and gloom and all negative and all and true. I do make sure that we include the highlights of what's happening, but it's been very important for me not to be depressing for others because I don't quite frankly want to be depressed. And I was sharing with the two of you, even with what's happening in the world right now, there's so much talk still even about, the insurrection that took place January 6th. Last week, there was another individual who tried to approach the Capitol and killed an officer and was, ended up being killed. And then, of course, we have the George Floyd, the officer who is on trial for killing George Floyd, Derek Chauvin. His trial is going on right now. And, I've been trying to stay informed but not being overwhelmed by it because I found that can be something that definitely can steal your joy. What do you guys think about that, about being aware but not being overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think we need to do that. Go ahead, Rodney. What were you going to say?
Oh, I'm sorry, Patrice. I didn't mean to cut you off. But no, I was just going to agree with that statement. Cyrus, I think there is a line that can be crossed between being informed and being obsessed or overwhelmed. I think it's important to be aware of the news of the day. It's important to just know what's going on. But, events like the Chauvin trial, events like the wall-to-wall coverage of the Capitol attack a couple of months ago, and any number of things that happen on a daily basis, can really bring you down mentally, psychologically, emotionally. It can add stress. It can add anxiety. It can put you on edge so that, even if someone just looks at you the wrong way at a Starbucks, it can set you off. And so I think there is value in knowing what's happening. And I think you also have to be in tune with your own spirit and understand that there might be, and everybody's different, everybody has different tolerance levels, and everybody has different stress levels. But I think that there comes a point where you have to be able to check in with your own body and your own spirit and say, you know what, maybe it's not good for me to stay so in touch with what's happening in the news, or maybe I need to take a break and not watch, any news coverage today because I need to take care of myself and my mental health. And I think that's wise. So I think it's really important to do that from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. You don't want to be. Especially these days with the Derek Chauvin trial going on, and I feel badly for all those people who have to testify because I can see that they're being re-traumatized, many of them, by the events of a year ago, right? And almost a year ago. And so I don't watch the news continuously throughout the day because I cannot go through that again. I'm like Rodney. I'll watch the highlights of each day just to stay informed, but I cannot be obsessed with that because there's too much work to be done, actually, productively on that front to enhance greater diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, in fact, I'm involved in a couple of different groups on that front. So I need my energy, to be productively deployed rather than sucked in by, the trauma of reliving that, or even Atlanta, what happened with those 8 people who were killed, 6 of them Asian women. Can't really dwell on that, but I think that there are lessons that we need to take going forward so that we can prevent that kind of thing from happening again. And so that's what those events are for. So we carry on and we, do the best we can.
Right. And we're going to be sharing stories and organizations that stood out to us this week. One last thing I want to say, and I didn't mention this to you all before, but as the two of you were talking, I do want to say that I have taken issue, and maybe you all disagree with me on this, with how the media, and I understand cable, they have to fill their time with something, but I was so upset that they, and I know that people in the courtroom were seeing it, but that they showed the entire tape of George Floyd, when he was killed, that they showed the entire thing. And I just don't think that's a healthy thing. And maybe I'm wrong in that. I understand the people in the courtroom need to see it, the jury needs to see it. I don't think with a country that is still so raw, with so much, I don't think seeing all of that from beginning to end is healthy. I just didn't think that was something necessary. I'm not sure if you guys have any thoughts about that, but that's how it literally started the first day, and that's when I made the decision. You know what? I can't watch this. I cannot put myself through that and the emotions that come up with all of that. I just can't do it.
Well, I think, like Rodney said, we have free will. We can elect not to watch, something like that. But I think that the prosecution has to make their strongest case to the jurors who are going to be delivering a verdict, and I think they have to use all the ammunition at hand in order to secure a verdict that is going to be fair to George Floyd and other Black Americans.
It's one of those things. Right? It's one of those things. I think that's hard. Well, we always try to be able to share something that we something else positive other than our outlooks on how we try to keep moving, and that is things that may have stood out for us during the week. Patrice, why don't you get us kicked off? What stood out to you that you'd like to spotlight?
Just all of the ways that people are reaching out to one another to check in, to see how you're doing, and is there something that I can do to support you? And, we've created a group to talk about it. Can you come and talk to us? I think that's probably the most healing thing. And, of course, I've been asking people who want to do more to please, reach out to their friends who are Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and if they can, donate to Stop AAPI Hate.org. That's AAPI, which stands for Asian American and Pacific Islander. So Stop AAPI Hate.org. They're the coalition that's tracking all of the reports of anti-Asian violence. And they're the ones who reported that over the past year there have been almost 3,800 incidences of anti-Asian violence, from verbal to physical assaults. So unless we know, what the situation is, we can't really claim that there is anti-Asian hate and that, in fact, it is increasing. So, support organizations that are trying to do something about anti-Asian hate and violence. So that's what I would ask people to do. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Patrice, Rodney, what about for you? What stood out for you this week you'd like to share?
There's a wonderful organization in New York City that's doing some really powerful work in the South Bronx and in Brooklyn, in some very localized neighborhoods in the Bronx and Brooklyn. And I've been getting to know them over the last few months. And it's called the Power of Two. And they have this very interesting approach to supporting parenting, particularly parents of young children, of infants or babies. And it's essentially this scientifically they use a scientific approach that's well documented and well researched around parent coaching. This idea that if you need support with children who, with young parents who are trying to raise kids, this idea of modeling positive behavior, and coaches will work with parents in their home for about 10 or 20 sessions, and the idea being that all the coach is going to do, there's more to it than this. I might be oversimplifying it, but that in its essence, what the coach is going to do is it's going to model positive reinforcement, so that if the parent is playing with the child and interacting with the child in a positive way, the coach is there to affirm those behaviors and to say, "Great job. This looks great. You're doing a wonderful job." So what they're doing is they're taking what is a very stressful situation for particularly single parents, raising a child by yourself maybe, and actually using positive affirmation to build the parenting skills that will set those parents up for hopefully many years of positive parenting. And they have a very hands-on, one-to-one, in-the-home approach. And the lives of these parents and these children are changed tremendously because they're receiving this very individualized coaching and modeling in positive parenting on a regular basis. And I think that's a beautiful it's a beautiful program, and they've been around for a few years, and they're looking to expand in the coming years, expand to more neighborhoods in New York City, and they're hosting community forums, on the new mayoral. They've done a mayoral forum on childcare recently. They've done education on COVID and vaccinations, and so they're very much ingrained in the communities that they serve, and they're making a real difference in the lives of young parents in underserved communities. And so I've been learning about this organization recently and thought that it would be nice to highlight them this week. They're called Power of Two, and you can find out about them on Power of Two, spelled out as a word, POWEROFTWO.NYC. Wonderful organization doing some incredible work.
Love it. The one thing I'd like to mention, I mentioned it to Patrice and Rodney, there's a new book that's out this month called Homegrown Hate. I had an opportunity to interview the author. Her name is Sarah Kamali. The subtitle of the book is really interesting: Why White Nationalists and Militant Islamists Are Waging War Against the United States. It's a really fascinating book that took her years to write, but she looks at why these organizations and their belief systems have not only empowered domestic terrorism in the United States, but it also is a call to action as to how we can counter their attacks on American democracy. And again, it's so timely considering it was published before the events of written before the events of the 2020 presidential election, before what happened January 6th, and of course, before everything that we've been seeing this year. So a really timely book, again, by Sarah Kamali, Homegrown Hate, Why White Nationalists and Militant Islamists Are Waging War Against the United States. I love books that not only address a problem but offer solutions, and that's what Sarah does really well in her book. So definitely recommend you guys check it out. Of course, you can get it through Amazon.com. Well, guys, it's been another great show. I hope our audience found something that they can be able to use as they're dealing with their own challenges. And we do invite you all, let us know, either on the post, if you're joining us on social media, let us know in the post, maybe some of the ways that you're dealing with what's happening in the world right now. If you're joining us on the radio side, definitely on the WYAD Facebook page. We want to continue to hear from you all. Thank you all so much for the support. Rodney, Patrice, it is always a pleasure, and looking forward to next week's show.
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you.
And we thank all of you as well, and we thank you all for tuning in to another great segment of Joy, Love, and Abundance, and hopefully you will find reasons to find some joy, love, and abundance in your own life that you can be able to share with others. Until next time, you all make it a great one. Take care.